Okay, here we are with our stitching done on these two corners. And as I'm looking at this, I want to redo this one because you can see I'm quite a ways off, and I would not be happy with myself when I was done. So I'm going to come around this other way and put it in, and I'm going to stitch on that other line where I can see this was not in my plan, but this is something that needs to be fixed.
Sure. I'm going to come around this way and you keep going.
Okay, and I can go a little faster if that helps. And you'll see with these cubes, they're a little more forgiving than a quilt block would ever begin to be. So if you can do a quilt block, you can do this type of project. You don't have to be concerned about that at all. And this foam has, like, it's going to go and make this its shape. So I'm going to trim, and I'm going to trim a 1/4 inch away from my good stitching line. So you're going to see me cut through a stitching line, so don't panic. I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm doing that because I'm having to fudge a little bit.
Well, we all learn how to fudge. I mean, sometimes, almost can't help it.
It's almost like there's times where you just it's good enough.
Yeah.
And that's something that was really hard for me to learn, that there's times where it's just good enough.
Well, I'm not perfect in any sense of the word. I mean, as far as a quilter goes, and my biggest problem is cutting fabric for a quilt. But, my quilts still turn out pretty good.
Okay, so now you can see we've got our square. You can see that our cube is now taking shape.
Yes, and it's really nice.
So we're going to turn this to the right sides.
Okay. Your handles are so nice there.
By doing it this way, they're already on. It would be pretty miserable to be lining that all up and getting them fed in after your lining was in. You might as well do it while they're flat.
Sure.
And then just take your handy dandy chopstick. If you don't have a chopstick, go out to dinner. Get chopsticks at the Chinese place. Cheapest sewing tool there is, except you end up paying for a meal. Okay, so you can see where the foam really holds the shape.
It does.
There isn't anything that has to be done to make this have shape while you're after it's put together.
Can I ask you a question before
Certainly.
you move on? Do you use the iron-on foam?
No, I do not. I use the regular two-sided Tricot foam. I know there's people that buy the foam without the Tricot. They call it the naked foam. I like the little bit of Tricot on it. I think it's easier to work with. as far as for, it just has a better hand. I use, let's see, here. I use this 505 spray and fix. It's like a basting spray that you would
Okay.
put to make a quilt sandwich together.
Okay.
And what I do is my little ironing board that I take for retreats, that unfinished wood side, I flip that board over and I lay my foam on it and I give it a spray and then I smooth out my fabric over that while it's on the underside of my ironing board.
Okay. Okay.
Then I flip it over and give it a good press. And then I do my marking, because your marking you want to be able to remove.
Okay.
And here is, you can see a little bit if you look really, really closely. You can see where that stitching is.
Yes.
It's kind of like a scoring.
Yes.
So if you, that really blends in with your background fabric, nobody's ever gonna say, oh my gosh, you missed a
They won't
seam."
even see it.
No.
Yeah.
But your stitching, your stitch lines, that's what's holding this in place.
Okay.
Also, if your fabric has direction,
Mm-hmm.
you want to cut accordingly and make sure that you're going in two directions for the sides that are coming up.
Okay.
Okay. So this kind of gives you where we are. That's the 7-inch. This is a little 4-inch. They're both out of the same
Yeah, that's cute.
fabric and they can be used together.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to our lining. Pick up just a little bit behind ourselves. Okay. You're going to follow the instructions for cutting your lining. It's on the actual second page. And what I do when I make one of these, I draw a line on the right side of the fabric for my turn edge, and then I
Oh.
turn in a 1/2 inch and
I
press
see.
that before I do anything else.
Okay.
Okay, and
All
I
right.
press that in on this side too.
So
So
it's
now
the
my
long.
right sides are here.
Okay.
And on this one, my marking is on the wrong side of my lining.
Okay.
Okay? And when I do this, I'm going to want to know where those exact lines are for when I make my lining. Because this part with my marking is what's going to be up against this foam.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to do the same. You've got it all marked. But these marking lines on this one are for reference only. But then I'm going to put my right sides together. And I am going to stitch, this time, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance along both sides. And the reason I do this is because you're now working with the inside of your foam.
Okay.
So your inside is actually smaller than your exterior because we have the thickness of the foam on the outside. So by taking that 5/8 inch seam allowance, you're compensating for your 1/4 inch foam. So now this is going to be stitched at 5/8 inch And this time when I stitch these, I do not trim these seams. The reason for that being is it's hard, you're going to be turning that under in your lining, and it's harder to work with and get those seams if you it's just harder to work with and get them not showing
Sure.
on the outside. And then I mark with a permanent marker, not something that's going to be removable or a iron away marking, because I'm going to press on those lines, because I want to know where those exact lines are for putting my lining together.
What happened there?
Okay. So we're done with this.
Okay.
We're going to do both sides. We're going to quickly sew this other side off camera, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to be ready to talk about our finished lining, what else you have to do, because there's one more step, and then we're going to be sewing in, putting our lining in, flipping it over, sewing it, and we'll be done. So we'll see you in just a minute.